Hello friends, this is Vijay. In our today Hindu Daily, we are going to see the list of topics which are in the display. The first one, no need for extra curbs on the free speech of ministers. Its significance is in Prelims GS1 and Mains GS2. Let us dive into the topic. Here you should know some background information. In the recent past, the people representatives, both MLAs and MP, they have been making various statements and which had lead to the repercussions in the society, because while they have been exercising their right to speech, they have been affecting the sentiments, morality, emotions and dignity of both the individuals and the social groups. Because you might have seen in the recent past, the community related statements and the religious related statements and all, it have been rising. So that from there, it have been affecting the certain sentiments and morality of the people, right? So here comes the question, whether there is a need to impose any additional restrictions, or should the government be held for issues arising from the public officials' free speech. Now let us discuss it very briefly. In the recent time, the Supreme Court, they came up with a judgment. It is a 5-member constitutional bench. 4 members, they had given one opinion, and Honorable Justice B.V. Nagaratna ma'am, she had given an opinion which is opposite to the judgment what it had been provided by the 4 members of the constitutional bench. Okay. Here the opinion 1, it is a judgment which had been given by the 4 members of this constitutional bench, and they have been stated that there is no need to impose any additional restriction because they are exercising their right, but they should be very cautious. Like that alone, these 4 judges have been mentioning. Apart from that, they also stated that the government can be held accountable for the statements what the MPs and MLAs have been making in their meeting or press meets. Then in the opinion 2, which is from the B.V. Nagaratna ma'am, she had been revealing that the ministers and public servants, they need to be very cautious while making any statements in the public, because they have been serving for the public and they should have certain empathy over the minority groups like Muslim communities, Christians and other social groups. They may be scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, right? Because they are a public representative and they are exercising their duty for the welfare of all the sections of the society, right? So that's how she have been mentioning this statement. And in the second statement, she had been mentioning that the right to dignity, it can't be sacrificed on the tenets of the free speech. You might have known very well that right to dignity, it is enshrined in the article number 21 of the Constitution, and freedom of speech, which is under the article 19A. Okay, so whenever public officials exercising their freedom of speech, they should be very cautious and they should make their statement in such a way that the dignity of the individual can't sacrifice there. Then in this third statement, she had been mentioning that it is applicable not only to the ministers but also to the celebrities, public servants, etc. Because behind all these persons, there is some mass, right? Therefore, they should follow their diligence while making any statements in the public. She is also revealing that every common man should be very cautious. The statements from each and every individual can affect the sentiments of the other individuals. So, even the common citizen should be very careful about the statements what they are making in the public. This is what the Honorable Justice B.V. Nagaratna ma'am had revealed in her judgment. Okay. So, here you can get the question for the GS2 mains paper. Okay. There they can ask you the opinion based questions based on the right to freedom of speech and expression and the right to life, especially the right to dignity and all can be clubbed, and they will ask you the question. Okay. Now let us dive into the next topic. In this editorial, preventing animal cruelty is a duty of state, author have been discussing the courses of issues which have been following on since 2014. But before getting into the topic, you should know certain background information about Jallikattu. Jallikattu is a bull timing sport. Okay. Wait. Jallikattu is a bull timing sport, and it have been practicing in Tamil Nadu since Sangam times. Okay, we can find the tenets related to Jallikattu in Sangam literature books also. Then the author have been discussing that in the part 3 of the Constitution of India, we didn't find any responsibility for government or for citizens to protect the animals. But in part 4 and in fundamental duties 51A, there are certain principles are there which have been fixing certain responsibilities on citizens and governments to take certain initiatives for protecting the animals from cruelty. So based on that, the government of India, they had come up with a PCA Act, Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, in the year of 1960. Okay. Then in the 2014, in the Apex Court, there was a case which was between Animal Welfare Board versus Nagaraja. There, the Apex Court stated that the Jallikattu as an illegitimate sport because it involves cruelty and unnecessary sufferings. There were also the absence of regulations from the state government side. So based on these issues, the Apex Court had banned the bull timing sport Jallikattu in the year of 2014. Then throughout the Tamil Nadu, there was a mass protest. Therefore, to douse the mass protest, the government of Tamil Nadu, they had made an amendment to the PCA Act 1960, and they had allowed the bull taming sport in the Tamil Nadu territory. So this is what it had been explained in the first part. Also, in the first part of the editorial, he have been mentioning that part 3, article 14 and article 21, which were meant for persons, especially the human beings, and in some occasions partnership, corporations, trust, etc. But in DPSP and fundamental duties alone have been reflecting the animal welfare related initiatives. Then in the PCA Act, okay, in the PCA Act, it criminalizes the several types of actions that cause cruelty to animals. Okay. It criminalized the cruelty. Therefore, in the Nagaraja case, the Supreme Court told that the Jallikattu falls within the boundary of the PCA Act. Okay. Jallikattu falls in the ambit of PCA Act. So based on that, the Supreme Court had banned the bull taming sport. Then in 2017, TN government had amended. Okay. TN government had amended the PCA Act. Here, under the argument of petitioners, they have been mentioning some two grounds. Okay. First one, entry 17. Okay. This is a entry 17 which is in the concurrent list. Okay. The entry 17 is related to the prevention of cruelty to animals, where both the center and the states have power, and Tamil Nadu government excluded the practice from the ambit of PCA 1960. So this is the first ground. Okay. This is the first ground. But here, excluding the practice from the PCA Act, actually they are condemning the cruelty to animals. This action has no underpin with the entry number 17. This is what it had been discussed in the passage. And in the second ground, author have been discussing the Supreme Court findings on 2014. Jallikattu is against the provisions of PCA and 51AG. 51A means fundamental duties, G is the provision number. Okay, where the court held that Jallikattu is against the provisions of PCA and 51AG, which means it requires the citizens to protect the natural environment, including the forest, lakes, rivers, and wildlife, and to have compassion for the living creatures. Effect of this violation, okay, will be having a direct bearing on right to life in the Article 21. So, if we are violating the principles of PCA Act and 51AG means it will be the direct violation of the Article 21. Anyhow, the Article 21, it is only for citizens and corporations, partnerships, trust, etc. Here, the judges have been equating it with the life of the animals also. Therefore, the second argument have been raising many questions. Do animals have the personhood? Okay. Do animals have personhood? Does our idea of justice include a guarantee of animal rights? Like that, several questions have been arising based on the second argument. Therefore, in the conclusion, the author have been discussing these all questions need to be answered by the Constitution bench. It is going to be a 5 judges bench, and they will be deciding the answer for these questions like that author have been discussing. Apart from that, the Article 21 safeguards only the rights of human beings, right? But we should have some empathy and compassion towards the animal creatures also. Therefore, the legislation to prevent the cruelty to animals is not an option but a binding duty of the elected government. So that's how the author have been concluding. So based on this issue, we can't impose any blanket ban on the Jallikattu, but we can take certain initiatives to promote the game in a healthy way. So that's how the answer should be written in the mains paper. Now let us see the topic number 3. It is crucial for India to embrace multi-domain operations. Here, the author is Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur sir. Okay, he have been explaining the MDO and he have been showing some strategy and what are the lacunas we are having in the armed forces. So these all things have been discussing by the author. Now let us discuss it very briefly. Multi-domain operation means operations across multiple domains. You might have known in our defense forces we are having several wings, right? Not only the air force, the infantries or the marine forces, but also these days the war have been expanding to the cyberspace and also the electromagnetic spectrum also. So that you need to keep it in mind. Here in the MDO, we will be using certain sensors and we will be handpicking the right executors to finish the task. Okay, let me explain very briefly. This is take for an example, this is a Kashmir border, and here infiltrants are trying to intrude into the national boundary. There are certain sensors will be there. They will be detect the movement of the ultraviolence and they will be reporting to the commanding office. So in the commanding office, based on the efficient and efficient resources, in the commanding office, they will handpick the executors to finish the ultrawires, where the principles of resource optimization and all will be followed. So MDO is nothing but a synchronization between the different wings, and there they will follow the optimization of the resources. Here there are certain demands for MDO. First, all sensors must be capable of being hosted in MDO architecture. Multi-domain operations, there is an architecture will be there. There all the sensors will be feeding the inputs. Then executors must be able to receive inputs and instructions from the C3 architecture. What is that C3 architecture? It is a command and control architecture, okay, where the inputs and all will be feed on, and the executors will take the input from this architecture. Then if the main architecture is jammed, there especially, let me write on diagram, okay. This is a main architecture where multiple inputs will be fed, okay. To executors, there will be a flow of input from this architecture. If this architecture is jammed by the enemy forces, means there should be the flow of command through the distributed control, okay. There should be some distributed control system should be there. So whenever the main architecture is getting jammed by the enemy forces, the command and control action should be flow through the distributed control architecture. So that's how the MDO operation should be carry on, like that the author have been explaining. Here in the diagram, you can see the interoperability across the domains and services. There will be n number of domains, and each domains will be operating on certain frequencies. And in the MGO architecture, there will be a synchronization of signals and all. There the inputs and all will be fed on by the respective agencies, and the executive agencies, they will take the feed on inputs and they will make the action plan, and they will finish the enemy ultrawires. It will be leading to the accelerated decision making, because the precision will be very high in the system, and the battle readiness will be enhanced by incorporating the MDO. Then there they had provided that all domain situational awareness, right? So these are some positives with respect to the MDO. The enterprises to edge connected force and full spectrum kinetic and non-kinetic effects. Kinetic and non-kinetic effect means if we are launching the missile, means it is kinetic, and if we are using some other forces without any missiles or gun, means it will be a non-kinetic effect, because by receiving the information from the MDO architecture, there can be an arrest also, right? The arrest of terrorists and all will happen based on the inputs, so that will be taken as a non-kinetic effects. To ensure the MDO as a excel, he have been suggesting some 4-pronged strategy. The first one, stabilization of physical domains, plus we need to plug the critical deficiencies. Today we are having enormous deficiencies in the armed forces. There is a huge demand for the 5th generation aircraft carriers, right? So that is also the critical demand. Then in certain areas we are having poor skill set, so that and all we need to improve. That's what he have been suggesting in the point 1. And the C3 network to be hardened, it should not get jammed by the enemy forces. Then the third one, he have been asking to promote the pilot project, because in the pilot project only we will be coming to know what are the errors we can do in the operations or in the battle, okay. So that's what he have been asking to go to the pilot project to ensure the battle readiness. In the 4th point, he have been asking the armed forces, especially the personals, to undergo training and education. So to ensure the greater MDO in the field, our defense forces should synchronize in such a way to promote the resource optimization in all their action plans, okay. Now let us dive into the next topic on the legality of Israel's occupation. Here, before getting into the topic, you should know some background information with respect to the Israel. Let me explain some brief gist of what it had been going on since 1914. Okay. So here, on 30th of December, the UNGA, they have been referring certain statements to the ICJ, International Court of Justice, where in this article on the legality of the Israel's occupation, you need to know certain background information. Okay, on December 30, UNGA passed one resolution where India abstained. Actually, UNGA, after passing the resolution, it have been referring a matter to the ICJ. They have been asking that UNGA have been asking ICJ what are the legal implications of the Israel's occupation on Palestine land. Okay, so this is what they have been referred to the ICJ. Before getting into the topic, you should know some background informations. So, before 1919, in 1919, World War I was ended. Before 1919, this region was under the Ottoman Turks. Okay, so where the Arab population was the majority. But after the 1919, it became a UK's mandate, United Kingdom's mandate. UK got several mandates in the end of World War I. The territory of Israel also one among them. Then in the 1930, there was a rise of Hitler. Okay, he belongs to the Nazi group, and he is having some negative opinion against the Jewish people. Therefore, he carried out the genocide. There was a genocide of Jews by the Nazis. Meanwhile, when UK got the mandate, UK got proclaimed that the Jewish people can come and settle in the territory of the today's Israel. So when the persecution happened, lot of inflow to the Israel landscape was happened. So it led to the skirmishes between the Arab and the Jewish people. Then in the year of 1947, UN came up with one plan. There actually they announced the bifurcation of the land into the imaginary Palestine and the Israel. Actually, Israel had accepted this plan, but Arabs were against this plan. It led to the first Arab-Israel war in the year of 1948, where Israel emerged victorious. Okay, Israel emerged, where Israel emerged victorious. Arabs were defeated and they captured more land than what UN had promised. Okay, so it was a benefit for the Israel. Then in the post-war scenario, almost some 7,000 Palestinians were displaced. Okay, in the meantime, West Bank come under the occupation of Jordan, Gaza Strip under Egypt, and remaining by the Israel. Then the tensions built. Okay, and the tension is between the Israel on the one hand and Egypt, Jordan and Syria on the other hand. It is like Israel in one block and Egypt, Jordan and Syria in another block. Okay, which led to the 6-day war in the year of 1967. In the 1967, it was a 6-day war where Israel captured the West Bank. Okay, let me explain the other diagram. West Bank. Okay, then the Gaza Strip, which was under the occupation of Egypt. Then Syria's Golan Heights. This is the Golan Heights. Then Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. This is a region of Sinai Peninsula. Okay, so these all regions, it came under the occupation of Israel in the end of 6 days war in the year of 1967. Later, Sinai Peninsula alone returned to Egypt. Israel declared entire Jerusalem eternal and undivided capital. Okay, because in the first Arab-Israel war, it had captured the West Jerusalem. Therefore, in the 1967 Six Days War, it also captured the East Jerusalem. Then Israel declared the entire Jerusalem as eternal and undivided capital. In the year of 2005, Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip. Then its external borders are still controlled by Israel and Egypt, especially the Gaza Strip. Okay, because Sinai Peninsula, it handed over the Sinai Peninsula to the Egypt itself. Thereafter, Palestinians seek the West Bank as the heartland of future independent state. Okay, this is the West Bank, but it is still under the occupation of the Israel. And today, this is the Palestinian territory. Okay, it is on 2020, based on 2020. Today, the land territory, it also got shrinked compared to the 2020 status. Therefore, UNGA meeting, the UNGA had passed the resolution and it has asked the opinion from the ICJ. Here in ICJ, it can lead to two ways. It can lead the issue in two ways. The first one, it can lead to the settlement with a party withdrawal from its case. Second, first one is settlement. And the second one, it may lead to trial and verdict. Okay, it may lead to the trial and verdict. So these are the two possible courses of actions after referring the case to the ICJ. Even though the ICJ is having power to conduct the trial and having the power to give the verdict, it doesn't have any power to enforce the verdict what it is going to provide. And in the settlement, if it is going to be a settlement, means obviously Israel will withdraw their forces from the occupied territory, especially in the West Bank and from the Gaza Strip, and there will be a mutual settlement, right? But in the trial and verdict, it can go in either way. It can come in favor of Israel or it can go against the Israel. So we need to wait and watch. But today in the Israel, the government is under Netanyahu. He is an extreme rightist and it is a coalition government. Almost some 6 right-wing parties are there. So they won't withdraw from their positions. Okay. Therefore, we need to wait and watch what is going to happen in the Israel landscape. Now let us dive into the next topic. India set to eye 17 billion cut in food fertilizer subsidy spend. Here you need to read the details in the box alone. Okay, where government expects to set aside about 2.3 trillion for food subsidies next fiscal year compared to the 2.7 trillion in the current year. Spending on fertilizer subsidies will likely fall to about 1.4 trillion from almost 2.3 trillion in the current fiscal. Then fiscal deficit for the current fiscal year is targeted at 6.4% of the GDP. Now let us discuss briefly the issues involved in the fertilizer subsidies and what are the fertilizers we are using in India. In agriculture, the plants will require both the macronutrients and micronutrients. For providing the micronutrients, we are having the soil health card, and especially for the macronutrients, we are providing subsidies for the urea, DAP and muriate of potash. So these are the 3 prime fertilizers we are using in India. Among them, urea alone occupies almost some 35% in the fertilizer basket. Okay, the government have been providing the subsidies directly to the producers, not to the farmers, especially with respect to the urea. But in the recent times, it had brought DAP and muriate of potash under the control of the government alone. Previously, they were under the price fixation and all will be carried out by the private agencies, but these days, they also brought under the purview of the government. There are several issues are there with respect to the fertilizer subsidies. The first one, the fertilizer plants in India are highly inefficient and they are using the age-old technology. Second, we are doing massive imports because for producing the urea, we might need the petroleum resources, right? So there is a massive imports and we are also importing urea in a final product form. Okay, so that and all will be adding to the massive imports, and it have been widening the current account deficit because we are doing massive imports and we will be ending up in paying the huge dollars to the foreign countries. Therefore, there is a widening current account deficit. Then huge farm fertilizer subsidies, okay, huge farm fertilizer subsidies which have been widening the fiscal deficit. Okay, it have been widening the fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit you might have known. It is a total expenditure to the total revenue. If government is spending 100 rupees, okay, if government is spending 100 rupees and it is getting 97 rupees, means here we are having a 3 rupees as a fiscal deficit. Okay, then we are also having commitments under the WTO food subsidies. All right, because under the WTO food subsidies we are having certain commitments to reduce the food subsidies and the agriculture subsidies. Then cheaper urea and DAP, it have been creating a nutritional balance in their farms. Through this, the ecological imbalance is having created. And meanwhile, the excess fertilizer usage have been leading to the salinization of the farms. And you might have known about the eutrophication, right? The enormous amount of fertilizers we are using in the field, it will be washed out in the rainy times. So that will get dumped in the aquatic environment. There, the algae and all will be get bloomed. So it will be leading to the eutrophication. That's it, friends. Now let us see the prelims questions and the mains question from the topic what we discussed today. The first one, consider the following matches. Jallikattu, we know it is in Tamil Nadu, right? It is a bull taming sport which have been conducted in Tamil Nadu. Then Bailgadi Shariat, it is a sport of Maharashtra, and Bulbul fight, it is from Assam. So these two topics are interchanged. So option 2 and 3 are wrong. Then Kambala, it is also like a bull taming sport which have been conducting in Karnataka. So answer option 1 and 4 are right. Then the second question, West Bank. I already explained you about the West Bank. West Bank is located in the east of the Israel territory. Okay, that you should keep it in mind. West Bank is not located in the west of the Israel. It is locating east of the Israel territory, and which is appeared news which is located in Israel. Okay, Egypt we have seen Sinai Peninsula. Russia and Ukraine we will be discussing some landscapes in the upcoming news analysis. Okay, now let us dive into the mains question part. Here the mains question, it is bit tougher, but do practice it. Okay, critically analyze the freedom of speech and expression enshrined in the Constitution of India on the lines of recent Supreme Court judgment, where we discussed it was a 5-member constitution bench. They have been given some different opinions on the issue related to the freedom of speech and expression of the public officials, right? So that you should know before writing this question. You can take certain tenets from the judgment and you can write it in the answer. Then the second part of the question, do you think that there should be an additional restrictions on the public representatives to ensure the dignity of individual enshrined in the Article 21? That you need to give some opinion and you need to justify the opinion with the statements or with the judgments what you are going to provide in the answer copy. Okay friends, let us discuss another newspaper tomorrow. Okay, bye.